performances.
They gave up on me. They gave up on me.
Copy. Our next guest is two-time NBA All-Star who has been getting buckets on the Pro-Am circuit all summer. Isaiah Thomas, welcome back to The Jump. Hopefully, Isaiah, can you hear me? This is Malika Andrews. We're just double checking. All right. Well, we're having some technical difficulties, and we're hoping we can get back to The Jump. We did it. Our technical difficulties are solved. So our next guest is a two-time NBA All-Star who's been getting buckets on the Pro-Am circuit all summer long. Isaiah Thomas, you can hear me now. Welcome back to The Jump.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we see you in beautiful Tacoma, Washington, but we've also seen you light it up with dominant offensive performances. What have these Pro-Am experiences, what have they been like for you?
It's been very cool just because like I'm a student of the game. I love basketball so much. I've usually always play in Pro-Ams or LA Fitness, the YMCA. I'm playing everywhere. This has been the first, summer I've been completely healthy and been allowed to play in those things. So that's all it is. I took a few year hiatus from the summer pro leagues, and now I've been back trying to put on some good performances for the people who come to watch.
Well, you've certainly been putting on a show, and you're no stranger to proving yourself. You've done it over and over again. But the ultimate goal for you, it remains to get back in the NBA?
Yeah, that's the only goal. That's the only goal is to be in the NBA and be on the roster. I know I got the talent to do it. Yeah. I'm finally healthy. I'm just, waiting on the opportunity. And I know at some point when it does come, I'm going to take full advantage of it, and I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. So
what workouts have you done with NBA teams or NBA players recently, and how did they go?
I've worked out with some teams. They went really well. I mean, teams have seen me move. They just seen me be who I am, and that's what the biggest thing for me is, to get it out there so people can see that I'm healthy, the people to see I have no restraints, I have no restrictions. I'm 100% ready to go. But I've been working out with guys. I've been ready, and I'm just waiting on the opportunity. I'm waiting on the right opportunity for me to showcase my skills and be able to have an opportunity to play at the highest level and show that I can still compete at a very high level. I
got to push you just a little bit. Are there any particular players, teams, or feedback that you've gotten that you can share with us?
I mean, I want to try to keep that in-house. I mean, I seen there was something out there the other day. I'm just trying to get in the gym with anybody, really. Just for everybody to see it. Like I said, I'm a gym rat. So I've been in the gym with some highly talented guys. I'll let the world figure that out, though.
You can give us a wink if that's true. Give us a little a nose right. Oh,
yeah, I've been in the gym with who you think I've been in the gym with.
Yeah, so, there we go. Well, before we let you go, Isaiah, and I really appreciate you joining us, ESPN's The Undefeated is coming out with a 30 for 30 podcast on your friend, the late rapper Nipsey Hussle, entitled The King of Crenshaw, and you were a part of this podcast, and I just want you to take a listen to the trailer.
My race. He was one of our superheroes.
Nipsey saw potential. He saw a community. He saw hope.
So, Isaiah, when you got drafted, you got a tattoo that reads TMC, the marathon continues. It's a saying, it's a lifestyle that Nipsey instilled in you, and you two were incredibly close. What was that relationship like, and how are you carrying him with you through this chapter of your life and career?
Man, I miss my bro. That was one of my dopest friendships that I've had in my life, because it was so real and genuine. We were on the same paths, but like different roads. And I felt like, he was one of the realest people that I've ever been around, that I've ever met, that I've ever conversated with. And I'm just happy to be able to call him a friend. It sucks, it's unfortunate the things that happened to him, but I'm just glad that everybody's giving him the love that he deserves, because he was one of a kind. And I think, he was just reaching somewhat of his potential Like, we only seen a little bit. I think he was going to take over not just the rap game, but the whole world in terms of his inspiration, in terms of, you know, what he stood for. So for me, man, I just try to, you know, keep his name alive. I try to keep his music alive and you know, doing whatever I can to, you know, let the world dig into what he was really about. You know, the marathon is what he is about. It's a lifestyle. It's something that I go about since 2008 when I first met Nipsey. And he's been everything to me, like the most genuine human being that I've ever been around. And I miss my guy.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm really looking forward to hearing the podcast in its totality. And thank you, Isaiah, for joining us. Best of luck going forward.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. You'll see me on the NBA court this year.
We'll see you on an NBA court this year. We're going to take that as an IT guarantee.
Yeah, that's a guarantee.
Well, we need to take a break, but first, here's a name. And in an interview on Draymond's new show, Chips, KD and Draymond both questioned the staff's response to that incident. So, Ramona, what more can you tell us about this back and forth?
Well, look, this was a big incident, but I don't know. I was questioning the premise of the question in itself, that the fallout from this was the reason that he left. The whole incident started because Draymond questioned him about leaving, that it was sort of an open secret that KD had been talking about leaving, and that's what Draymond confronted him on. And then one of the things KD says in that comment there, where he says, you know, when I was watching The Last Dance, you know, they had this meeting where Scottie Pippen, when he asked out of the game, and then in the locker room afterwards, everybody said to Scottie, that wasn't cool, that wasn't cool. Well, the Warriors actually did have a meeting with the six core group of guys, with Kevin Durant, with Steph, with Clay, with Draymond. Everybody was in a room. About a week later, it was out on the road, and I think they got together and they had a big meeting, and they did hash that all out. It wasn't in front of the entire locker room, but the six core guys, they did get in a room and talk about it afterwards. So I think the whole premise of that setup was a little off. It feels like the whole fight started because Draymond said to KD, why are you leaving?
Right. Yeah. Look, the thing that I find kind of curious about it, and I love the fact that they're having this conversation, because this is, when you look at the history of basketball, this is one of those things that people are always going to point to.
Right.
But my thing is this, is that was expected. Like, you need a coach and you need a GM or the president to step in when there's something happens. And so when you look at players and you say, like, well, only people that can fix this are me and KD. Well, you guys had plenty of months to fix it. So, like, obviously you're saying that them stepping in and what they should do in a managerial position, and then you're saying, well, the only people that can fix it are fix it, but then you guys didn't fix it because he still ended up leaving. So I just feel like kind of passing the blame is like, well, it wasn't what I said. It wasn't your free agency. It was the way that management handled this. And I think that that's just kind of difficult to put it all on everybody. I think there was a lot of equal parts there.
Perk?
Well, I'm confused as usual. I mean, I thought the interview was great, 30 minutes of it. But here's the thing, right? I've been around. I played with a lot of Hall of Famers. I've been in a lot of locker rooms where guys actually got into it and guys actually got into fights. Hell, I done got into fights. And you talk it out and you move on, but it's part of it, right? You have a group of guys that be around each other for a long, extended period of time. At times, you're going to get tired of one another. The only thing that I didn't like about this whole interview is that KD and Draymond didn't hold themselves accountable. Like, this was an argument between those two. Like, Bob Myers and Steve Kerr didn't have a meeting with Draymond to encourage him to call Kevin Durant out of his name. I mean, at the end of the day, my kids, I have a 9-year-old and I have a 13-year-old. They argue, they come trying to fuss and tell on each other and tell me what's going on. And guess what I tell them? I don't want to hear it. Y'all figure it out, because I don't want to figure out everything. I don't want to hear y'all arguing, but y'all figure it out. So at the end of the day, that's the only part I didn't like, is that those two didn't hold themselves accountable. Like, and all Bob Myers and Steve Kerr tried to do was hash it out. I mean, asking Draymond to apologize for calling another grown man out of his name, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, and look, that wasn't the first time that Draymond, and look, his passion is something that is undeniable.
And talked about it.
And talked about, like, he knows that that's his strength, but at times he has to be able to dial that in, and that was one of those moments, but you understand it. My thing is this. I got into an actual fist fight with Kenyon Martin when I was a rookie, and he was a vet, and it wasn't the smartest thing I ever did. But
I would have taken Kmart.
100%. Luckily, Aaron Williams grabbed Kmart, and then I ended up punching Aaron Williams. I'm sorry about that, Adrian. And so, but the next day, Byron Scott brings us into the office and it's like, what's going on? Like, you're a rookie, you're a second-year player, you guys are our wings, like, what's going on? And it was like, we explained it, we hashed it out, and then we became stronger and closer for it because we understood that we were willing to go that next level. I'm not saying that situation had to dial in here, but to have management bring in players that have a scuffle, that is not unusual. To have you apologize, or if you were the one that was in the wrong, if you're not going to apologize or at least show some regret, then there's probably going to be a suspension and then we move on. So it's tough to say in hindsight this was their fault, but without them taking ownership. That was the one thing. The lack of accountability on their parts for the argument is kind of discerning.
Well, here's the question that I have. Throughout that whole interview, Draymond, I mean, obviously, he let out some stuff that should have been held confidential that happened with him and Bob Myers and Steve Kerr, et cetera, et cetera. He let loose, Draymond being Draymond. Yeah. My thing is, camp is right around the corner. It's going to be another meeting when he walk in the building of that practice facility come October the 1st or whatever the first day of training camp. So my question is, where do the Warriors and Draymond go from here?
I think they're fine, though. Yeah. Perk, honestly, if there's one thing about Draymond, they have a lot of incidents like that. That's part of what the Draymond experience is. He's very loyal, and then you have situations like this, but everybody knows Draymond. They know how loyal he is, how committed he is. I don't think he has problems in that locker room, and I think what was interesting about that discussion is part of why that situation escalated in the first place was Draymond really runs that locker room. Draymond was calling out KD. He was almost trying to settle it on the court. That was the fallout there. And I just felt like KD is happy in Brooklyn. He's happy with his decision, right? It doesn't. Well, you cover him all the time. He's happy there.
It seems like he is. And in that interview, he also added, look, if we were discussing this after we had been healthy all season, perhaps this would have been a different discussion. That's one of the things that he mentioned there. But moving on to Joel Embiid, who became $200 million nearly richer yesterday after signing a 4-year contract extension that takes his contract all the way until 2027. Ramona, you've been all over Embiid's road to this commitment. How did this get done?
Well, this is interesting. This was a player representing himself. He doesn't have an agent right now. This was Joel Embiid doing the deal direct with the Sixers ownership, doing the deal directly with Daryl Morey. And you can do that when you're a max player, when you know you're going to get the bag. But there were some interesting provisions in this. His last rookie contract, the extension he signed off that deal, had provisions, Malika, where if he suffered catastrophic injuries to his lower leg or his lower back, that they would essentially be covered. He would lose some money on that. There was incredible protections in that. Bobby O'Marks one time described it as the most complicated contract in NBA history. It's 35 pages of all the ways that if he suffered a catastrophic injury, he missed the first 2 years of his career, so you understood why the Sixers did it. There's none of those protections in there this time. He got a fully guaranteed deal. He got the player option in year 4. I mean, this is a really good deal that he negotiated for himself.
Well, I just think Joel is happy. I think he wants to be in Philly. Obviously, he signed the deal and committed to him, but this is a great thing for the Philadelphia 76ers. This means that they're moving in the right direction. Now, I know that they have to solve the problem with Ben Simmons, and I feel like a coming to Jesus meeting, if they don't find a home for him, could help that. But to me, this just shows that Joel is committed to the organization, that he's not trying to go nowhere, that he wants to win in Philly. He embraces the role. He embraces the challenge. And I think this is a great deal for both sides.
Well, look, I agree. I think it's a great deal for both sides, but also too, you wonder about if there was leverage, right? If there was leverage that could have been had. Now he's got, like to Ramona's point, he was injured the first 2 years of his career, so he wants that security as quickly as possible. He wants to sign his name on the dotted line, but you talked about all the provisions. There was probably conversations about where direction we're going to go. Who is going to be my mate? Is it going to be Ben Simmons? Are you going to make a trade? But a lot of times when teams get security from their best player signing, you saw with Giannis, last season when he signs that extension, you're like, okay, he's committed to us. We can trade our draft picks because they're going to be late first round, and we can go get Drew Holiday, which ultimately wins the final piece. So when you have that commitment from Kawhi Leonard, when you have that commitment from Joel Embiid, it gives the team and the franchise opportunity to be like, okay, this is what we have now. Let's go forward.
Well, and speaking of that opportunity and kind of trying to put those pieces into place, the meetings that are being had, Ramona, as Ben Simmons still sits on the trading block, what's the latest you've heard about his relationship with the team?
Yeah, he's not calling them back. I mean, there's been reach outs to him. I know Embiid's reached out to him, Brand, Daryl Morey. Like, he's not engaging with the Sixers right now. You see him working out. He's getting ready for the season. He's in the gym with Tyrese Maxey. He's in the same gym with him all the time. But there's not a level of connection between Ben and the Sixers right now. And it's difficult for both sides, I think, because he would really benefit from a new start. I think with everything that happened at the end of last year, I know he was stung by some of the words that people said about him and his performance in those series, but also his performance in those series. And so if they're ever going to move past it, I do think those conversations need to happen before training camp or before a potential deal here. But they're listening to offers. So far, I think the sense is you get one chance to trade a player this good.
Yeah.
And they would prefer not to. I mean, he's a great player.
Yeah.
Can you get him back to being the Ben Simmons who was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting? Probably could have won that, depending on how you look at the voting there. But Ben Simmons is a great player. I think they would like to be able to rehabilitate that relationship, but he's got to want to rehabilitate that too. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? We've heard, Adrian. Less than a year later, you've been cleared to return to basketball activity. So can you just give us a little update on where you're at now on your comeback trail?
Playing 1-on-1 and 2-on-2. Looking to continue to progress and, get to DC in early September and ramp up to 5-on-5 from there.
Are you planning to be able to be available as soon as training camp starts? What's sort of the sense of when you think you're going to be fully able to join the Wizards?
I mean, that's going to kind of be up to the ramp-up plan of the Wizards in general. I've been working out with Kuz a little bit, working out with, some other NBA guys, and I feel good. I feel fine. I feel healthy, but, I still haven't played 5-on-5 just from the standpoint of being cautious for free agency.
Hey, Spencer, big perk here. First off, congratulations on getting the bag. All right, that's first thing
Thank
first.
You, brother.
But going down to Washington, trying to bring chocolate back to Chocolate City, we all know that they didn't have ball-dominant guards, right? John Wall, Russell Westbrook. I look at you as a combo guard, and I think you and Bradley Beal have a perfect fit. What are y'all expectations, or have y'all talked about y'all expectations going into next season?
I mean, I think we're going to look to lead a very deep group. I think we want to make the playoffs. And my job is to compliment Brad in any way that I can, to your point. I'm a combo, a little bit of a departure from Russ and John, obviously, but, have been an efficient and effective playmaker my time in Brooklyn and look to bring some of that to DC.
Spence, Richard Jefferson here. Look, I know that you got hurt before James Harden got there, but watching your career and watching how you really changed the Nets franchise, you made that franchise and the crew that you were with, whether it was Joe Harris and D'Angelo Russell, that crew, you guys really turned things around. Do you have any what ifs, if we would have been able to stay healthy or if I would have been on that court? Look, as players, we have that, but do you have that mentality?
For sure. I mean, you look at the Nets roster, they got KD, who's arguably one of the greatest scorers of all time, probably him and Kareem, right? You got Harden, who has probably had the best offensive playmaking seasons of all time. You got Kyrie, who could be the most skilled of all time, right? And then, me being kind of an amoeba and being able to fit in a lot of places and help out, and Joe being one of the best shooters in the league. I have no doubt that we would have won a championship last year. Obviously, that just wasn't in the cards for us. But Brooklyn was phenomenal for my career. They saved my career, and I was able to progress from there. And when people believe in me and I have a chance to repay them, like, it typically works out well. And now DC is giving me that belief, and I hope to show that there as well.
So speaking of DC, Spencer, in your contract with the Wizards, we got to break this down. You have a $1 championship bonus. How did that come about?
Yeah, my agent Jason is a super smart guy, and the way you have to kind of tier out bonuses, I guess you have to hit certain little tiers and things, and them making the play-in bonus was so high in terms of the 50 games was just to make sure that I get as much of the money as I deserve.
Every dollar.
Yeah. And so with a championship being probably a little bit harder achievement, but them still needing to have that slot filled, they made $1. And credit both the Wizards and Jason for doing that. I mean, obviously it's all in the rules, but it ends up being a funny meme. But I think it's just the Wizards doing me a solid at the end of the day.
Now, like you talked about the Brooklyn Nets kind of, saving your career and giving you that opportunity, and you bet on yourself, they bet on you, and it worked out well. What do you feel like your chances are to have that similar impact in Washington, helping to get that franchise back to, playing high-level basketball?
I think we definitely have a chance. Beal led the league in scoring last year, right? Is one of the best scorers in the league, obviously. Is going to continue to do that. We have Gafford, young, big, runs, protects the rim, catch lobs. You got Rui and Kuz, two emerging young wings, right? Now you have depth with Trez and Pope and Aaron Holiday. And obviously, if I come back in 19-20 form, and then I'm able to, spread the ball around as well as be an efficient scorer, whether, attacking the basket, getting to the line, et cetera, then we have a chance. I mean, anytime you have Bill on your team, you're going to have a puncher's chance as long as everybody does their job and we can defend it at least a decent level.
Hey Spence, I tore my ACL while I was playing too, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Being sidelined for an extended period of time, not being able to play the game that you love so much, you have different thoughts that goes through your head, and you have a different type of appreciation for the game when you come back. I want to know, how tough was it through the process of you actually rehabbing, and how eager you were to want to get back on the floor?
Oh, super eager. I mean, anytime you have a game taken away from you, you're excited to get back, as you said. I mean, you're hungry. Having been through a worse injury in terms of my ACL reconstruction in college, which was extremely hard, and not having a partial, obviously I was in a situation where I felt like I should, come back extremely quickly. And I wanted to play in the championship game. I wanted to be a part of the run and do special things. So that was the focus the entire time. It was never missing the entire year, but, it's the cards that ended up being dealt at the end of the day.
Spencer, we can't wait to watch you with the Wizards. It's really been a treat to kind of hear about your journey. I know you worked so incredibly hard and you were so ahead of schedule sort of every step of the way in this recovery, and that's really a testament to your work ethic. Thank you so much for joining us. Carmelo Anthony, the third overall pick in the 2003 NBA draft. And after LeBron James went first overall to the Cavs, the Pistons went with Darko Milicic over Carmelo Anthony for the second pick. Here's Melo on basketball's Showtime's All the Smoke podcast.
Like, to this day, I still think about that.
Really?
Yeah, hell yeah. Because I'm like, they promised me. You know what I'm saying? Yo, we taking you. We taking you.
Did they?
I'm talking all the way up to draft day. You understand? We taking you. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to Detroit. And then they won it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm there, I think they win another one.
I think so too.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't jump out there so we 3P football. I think we go back to back.
So, Perk, let's play a little what if. What if Carmelo had went to the Pistons?
He'd have 2 rings. It's no doubt in my mind. I think when you look at, the culture that Detroit had before Melo was drafted in 2003, and if they would have took him with the number 2 pick, they would have won it that year, and I thought they would have repeated. And then all of a sudden, you got a young guy that has been around a great group of vets like Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Lindsey Hunter, guys that are the pros to teach them how to be a true professional. Everyone knew how talented Carmelo was. I mean, he was just coming off a national championship with Syracuse, and now because we all have to remember with that Detroit team, they had like a 4 or 5 year run where they were actually a top seed in the Eastern Conference and a top team in the NBA. So at some point, Chauncey and them could have handed the keys over to Carmelo, and the team and that franchise would have been in good hands. And look, they still would have been eye candy. Who knows who would have came to Detroit to play with Carmelo? We might be talking about Melo as a guy that started his career with Detroit and finished his career with Detroit.
What do you think, Richard?
I hate what-if games. This is literally my least favorite because let's take it a little bit on the history
Who
lesson.
cares?
Listen,
Who cares?
You hush your mouth. Listen, when they drafted Tayshaun Prince the year before. Now, I played against them in the conference finals the year before Carmelo got drafted. Tayshaun Prince played great. Do you know what they were lacking? They were lacking a power forward. And so what did they do? They went out and they drafted Darko, right? That they could have drafted Chris Bosh. They could have drafted a number of people. But the person that they got at the All-Star break was who? Rasheed Wallace that year. So if we're going to play the what-if game, if they would have drafted Carmelo, maybe they don't get Rasheed Wallace. And we all know how important Rasheed Wallace. Oh, we want to sit here and talk about 2 championships for Carmelo if in the what-if game, if they would have drafted him. But we don't want to look at the subsequent things that happened after getting Rasheed Wallace at the All-Star break, which ultimately is we lost to them in 7. They went on to win a championship that year. So you don't know if one domino was going to lead to another one. Would he have been in a much better spot had he gone to Detroit? Yes. But let's not gloss over his Denver team. He went to a conference finals. He went to multiple postseasons. It's not like he showed up. It was in a trash situation. He had an amazing career in Denver. Yeah, he didn't win a championship, but there was also other dominoes that would have fallen had he would have gone to Detroit.
Well, first of all, me and Malika are not glossing over his Denver years. He the one brought it up on all the smoke, and we're just talking about it. He said that he still think about that to this day. They asked him about if he was the number 2 pick about going to Pistons. We didn't come up with it, Richard. We're just piggybacking off of something that Carmelo said. So don't be coming on here with that sassy attitude.
Why are you yelling?
Listen. Don't come on here with that sassy attitude towards me and Malika talking about what if and we playing a what if game. We're playing it because Carmelo brought it up on all the smoke.
Well, you know, Perk, that Richard just can't help himself. He's got to bring some sass to it. That's just who he is. That's what he does. I remember reading in a story that our friend Howard Beck wrote that LeBron James at one point during that draft kind of turned to him and said, this is you. This is your spot. That's something that he reported. And so it's interesting, right, to kind of think about those things. But it seems like Carmelo now is sort of rolling with this persona of this mindset of I like where I am now. I like where I'm going. This has all kind of come together at the right time. He said that in his press conference with the Lakers, that potentially at another point, this wouldn't have been the right time. So they're feeling like he's feeling like at least now is sort of the right time for those sort of dominoes to come together. He's done some growing up in this league. But, Richard, I know that what you... Oh, my gosh.
Malika, that's called being a man's man, all right? You just, in the country, you see a bug,